Discover the incredible truth. My son's heartwarming revelation while I lay in a coma for 30 days. When Mike Anderson collapsed on a sunny Tuesday morning, life as his family knew it shattered into a million pieces. A hard-working father, he had always been the bedrock for his wife, Lisa, and their bright-eyed 12-year-old son, Jacob. While lying motionless in a hospital bed, happily oblivious to the storm brewing outside, his once vibrant home echoed with a haunting silence. The American dream, once within reach, now felt miles away, wrapped in uncertainty and fear. Days turned into weeks as Jacob navigated the paralyzing fog of his father's absence. Monday morning, the school bell rang, but he felt detached, adrift in an ocean of confusing emotions. Friends whispered and pointed, but not one dared to ask about his dad. The weight of his aching heart was heavy, like a stone lodged in his throat. Why isn't Dad coming home? He thought, tears pooling in his eyes, casting shadows on the vibrant life they once shared. The family dinners with Mr. Thompson, their veteran neighbor, became reminders of what was lost. The laughter had vanished, replaced by solemn nods and forced smiles. Lisa was fighting battles of her own. She was exhausted from constantly managing rising medical bills while trying to keep some normalcy for Jacob. It felt like walking on a tightrope. Every step brought danger, the fear of losing her husband and their stability looming over her like a dark cloud. They clashed often, words came out sharper than knives, each one cutting deeper as misunderstandings multiplied. Jacob felt abandoned in a world that was swallowing him whole, and Lisa felt alone as she wrestled with her pain. One evening, while rummaging through the attic for something to distract himself, Jacob stumbled upon his father's old journal. Dust had crafted a thick coat over the cover, the pages yearning to share their secrets. As he opened it, he was greeted by Mike's neat handwriting flowing with dreams and life lessons. It was a treasure trove of hope. Mike's words leaped from the pages, filling Jacob with a sense of his father's strength. Success comes from effort and perseverance, Mike had written. That flicker of hope ignited a fire in Jacob's chest. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With newfound determination, Jacob began reaching out, sharing his father's story with classmates and neighbors. Alone, but not afraid. The community responded like they'd been waiting for a call. They rallied around him. Jacob's school project highlighting his father's unseen contributions caught the eye of the local newspaper, transforming their pain into shared hope. The story of Mike and his resilience reached every corner of their small suburb, igniting a wave of support that was larger than they could ever imagine. Yet, as Mike stirred from his coma, Jacob wrestled with fear. Would their lives be reshaped by this experience? Or would they lose everything? He clutched his father's journal, feeling the shadows of uncertainty pressing in. Would love and community bonds be strong enough to heal? As Jacob waited, heart pounding, everything hung in the balance. What would it mean if his father awakened? What if he didn't? The hope and anxiety intertwined, leaving him searching for the answers in a new reality that was just beginning to unfold. The hospital room was tinted with a fluorescent sterility. Machines hummed softly, their rhythmic beeps matching the fierce drum of Jacob's heart. He stood there, looking at his father, eyes shut peacefully, unaware of the world that awaited him. He could hardly breathe. It was as if an invisible weight pressed down on his chest, a mixture of hope and dread swirling within him. He couldn't shake the image of his father waking up. The thought both excited him and terrified him. What if Mike opened his eyes and everything changed? Would he remember? Would he be the dad Jacob missed, or would the man he had known slip away forever? As Jacob sat in the creaky chair, a knock broke the stillness. It was Mr. Thompson, raccoon-eyed and weary from age and worry. "How's your dad holding up?" he asked softly, stepping into the room like a whisper. Jacob forced a small smile, nodding. But deep inside, the answer was a tangled mess of emotions. He's still the same, Jacob replied, his voice barely above a murmur. Mr. Thompson's eyes glistened with a shared understanding. He placed a hand on Jacob's shoulder. Whatever happens, you know you're not alone, right? We're all here for you. The warmth of Mr. Thompson's words wrapped around Jacob like a blanket. In that moment, he realized he had a support system growing bigger every day: friends, family, neighbors, everyone who had been affected by his father's struggle. They were his lifeline. Jacob took a deep breath, deciding he needed to do something. The night was long, and he could use the quiet to write. He felt the call of his father's journal, beckoning him to add his own thoughts. He fished it from his backpack, flipping through the pages that felt alive with Mike's spirit. He picked up a pen and began to write. "Dear Dad," he started, pen trembling slightly. "It feels so weird without you. I'm trying to be brave, but the emptiness is heavy. I want you to wake up more than anything. I hope you're proud of me. I'm sharing your story. I want everyone to know what an amazing person you are." Tears blurred his vision, but he pressed on. Each word was a small release of the brokenness inside him. "I miss your jokes. I miss racing you to the car. Please come back. We need you." As Jacob poured his heart out onto the pages, something inside him shifted. The weight of fear began to feel lighter. He realized that, regardless of the outcome, he had the power to choose hope, to bring forth the legacy of his father. With renewed determination, he resolved to organize a community event, a fundraiser to support his dad's medical bills and raise awareness for the causes that mattered to him. He could feel his father's spirit guiding him, inspiring courage to transform their pain into action. Just as he was finishing, a sudden flutter in the air caught Jacob's attention. He pushed the chair back and moved closer to his dad. For the first time, he noticed something: a faint yet distinct change in the rhythm of the machines. Heart monitors beeped more rapidly, and Mike's fingers twitched. "Dad?" Jacob's voice cracked, filled with awe and fear. Was this it? Was his moment finally here? Everything froze. Jacob's heart raced, his breath caught in his throat. What if his father was waking up? What would he say? Would he remember? The whole world narrowed to that moment, the room buzzing with anticipation. The moment had arrived, but did Jacob have the strength to face it? Jacob held his breath as he watched the flickering monitor. The beeping intensified, almost echoing his own pulse. Questions spun in his mind like a whirlwind. Was this real? Had his father finally heard him? He leaned in closer, his heart pounding louder with every passing second. In that dim light, Mike's eye twitched again. Jacob gasped softly, clutching the edge of the bed. He felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. "Dad, can you hear me?" he whispered, his voice breaking. The machines responded with a flurry of beeps, as if they were trying to communicate a truth only they understood. Jacob noted a slight movement in his father's eyelids. They fluttered open, revealing the blue eyes that had always been his guiding light. "Jacob?" Mike's voice was raspy and filled with confusion. It was barely a whisper, but it filled the room with warmth, a bittersweet melody of recognition. "Yes, it's me. I'm here," Jacob exclaimed, overwhelmed with a rush of emotions. He felt tears stream down his cheeks, shaking with joy and relief. Shock wrapped around him like a heavy cloak. It was really happening. Where am I? Mike struggled to focus, blinking as if trying to piece together the fragmented memories. "You're in the hospital, Dad." "You had an accident," Jacob said, striving to keep his voice steady despite the tremor that thrummed through him. As Mike slowly registered his surroundings, Jacob could see the wheels turning in his father's mind. "How long?" Mike asked, his brow furrowing. He frowned, trying to process the reality of the situation. 30 days, you've been in a coma," Jacob stammered, his heart sinking slightly at the weight of those words. Mike's eyes widened, filled with disbelief. He turned his head to take in the room, the starkness of it all. 30 days and I missed so much. Not everything. I've been here. I wrote to you, Jacob said, his voice thick with emotion. He took a deep breath, noting the way uncertainty mixed with relief on his father's face. I shared your stories. I'm working on an event to help with your bills. Everyone cares about you, Dad. A flicker of recognition sparked in Mike's eyes. He reached out, shaky but determined. Jacob grabbed his hand, feeling warmth surge between them like a lifeline throwing him back into the world he feared he might lose. I'm so proud of you, son, Mike whispered, a faint smile crossing his lips. I always have been. A swell of joy and pride coursed through Jacob, glowing brightly in the midst of their struggle. It felt surreal, yet grounding. He was grateful for this moment, this connection that reaffirmed their bond when everything felt uncertain. The door creaked as a nurse entered, her presence breaking the spell. She smiled brightly, but her eyes were serious. Mr. Hargrove, glad to see you awake. We're monitoring you closely. As she adjusted the four and checked the monitors, Jacob glanced back at his father. Mike looked vulnerable yet strong. This moment, this awakening, felt like the beginning of their journey rather than the end. Dad, Jacob said, squeezing his father's hand tighter, promise me we'll take it one step at a time? Always, Mike replied, the warmth of his voice washing over Jacob like a comforting wave. But just as hope unfurled, a pressing question loomed on Jacob's mind. What had happened during those 30 days? Was there something Mike had kept hidden? As the nurse stepped out, leaving them in an embrace of shared hope and fear, Jacob knew they were far from finished. A new chapter awaited, one that held deeper truths and uncharted territory. Jacob watched the door close behind the nurse, and a heavy silence enveloped the room. His heart still raced, but an undercurrent of anxiety rippled through him. He studied his father's face, the lines of concern etched deeper now. The warmth of their earlier moments still lingered, but the shadows of uncertainty crept back in. Dad, I need to know what you remember, Jacob said, his voice steadying as he tried to peel back the layers of the past month. He felt the weight of the question hanging in the air, thick and tangible. Mike blinked, a frown forming. I remember the accident. It all happened so fast. One moment I was just driving home, and the next thing, blackout. His brow furrowed as he searched his own mind for something more. It's like someone pressed pause on my life. Jacob leaned closer, bracing himself to hear what might come next. Do you remember anything else? Anyone? There were times I would talk to you. I hoped you could feel it, hear it somehow. Mike's gaze shifted to the ceiling, as if he could unearth memories from the sterile tiles. Not really. It's like a void. I know I should feel something, anger, frustration, but I can't. His voice wavered, the fear creeping in again. Am I broken, Jacob? Did I miss too much to ever catch up? No. You're not broken, Jacob quickly assured, a pang of panic coursing through him at the thought. You're still you. We'll get through this, together. We'll fix whatever is broken. A flicker of gratitude crossed Mike's face, but doubts lingered in his eyes. Jacob placed his hand back on his father's, firm and reassuring. I'm not going anywhere. Just take your time. Thank you, Mike whispered, the sincerity lacing his words evident. But Jacob noticed that while his father's voice dripped with appreciation, a shadow lay behind it, waiting to leap forth. They were quiet for a moment, two hearts beating in rhythm. Jacob felt his father's thumb brush against his hand, a subtle sign of life returning to the man he admired. But a nagging worry gnawed at him. What happened in those 30 days when Mike was unreachable? And more importantly, did he truly want to know? The intercom blared suddenly, pulling Jacob from his thoughts. A faceless voice announced a code blue 3 rooms down. Jacob's heart thumped in his chest. He looked at his dad, whose eyes reflected a mix of confusion and fear. Dad, what if there is something we're not addressing? I mean, was there anyone that might be been involved with the accident? Anyone you might be seen? Jacob's words spilled out, urgency threading through each one. Mike turned his head slowly, as if piecing together a jigsaw puzzle. There was a car. It came out of nowhere, but it felt fuzzy. He pressed his lips together, the friction of memories trying to rush out. I just don't know, Jacob. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize, Jacob said, fighting against the swell of frustration rising in him. He knew the fog of confusion was heavy. Just focus on getting healthy. I'll figure out the rest. The quiet blanketed them again, thick with unresolved questions and an awareness that both their lives had changed forever. Jacob's resolve burned fiercely within him now. There might be unknowns, but they would reveal the truth together. As Jacob prepared to ask more, Mike leaned back, fatigue returning to the lines of his face. Can we get some air? He said softly, almost hopefully. Of course, Dad, Jacob smiled gently. We'll go for a walk as soon as possible. Just focus on getting better today. But even as he spoke, a sinking feeling settled in Jacob's chest. He realized the physical healing was just the beginning. Something deeper might be lurking in those 30 lost days, and he was determined to uncover it. Just then, the door swung open again, this time with the hospital's social worker stepping in, her expression grave. Jacob's breath caught in his throat. Had something changed? What did she need to tell them? As she approached, Jacob felt the weight of the moment shift again. A sense of dread crept up alongside hope. What would this news bring? The social worker's nameplate read Linda, and her eyes darted between Jacob and Mike, weighing the room's emotional pulse. Her calm demeanor was underscored by an unsettling edge. Jacob's heart pounded, each beat echoing the unspoken questions swirling in his mind. Mr. Lawson, Jacob, she began, her voice measured but soft, I am here to discuss some matters regarding your father's case. She took a breath, and everything around them faded, the hum of machines, the distant whisper of nurses, even the faint ticking of the wall clock. What is it? Jacob asked, urgency lacing his tone. He felt his father squeeze his hand tighter. There have been some complications? Mike interrupted, his voice suddenly stronger. What type of complications? Linda glanced down, then back at them. It's not just the physical injuries from the accident. We've learned that the car that hit you was not alone. There might be some legal aspects we need to address. It seems the driver has a complicated history. Jacob's stomach nodded. What do you mean? Your voice, it sounds serious. Mike's brow furrowed deeper, confusion giving way to alarm. It means that the accident may have involved more than just a careless mistake. The authorities are investigating. Linda's gaze shifted, a flicker of empathy breaking through the clinical tones. I understand this raises many concerns, but I'm here to provide support. Support. The word hung in the air, heavy and ambiguous. How could they find support in a situation like this? Support? Jacob echoed, his voice trembling with suppressed anger and fear. My father was in a coma for 30 days. Just tell us what we need to know. It's important to know that this doesn't reflect on your father's actions, she said, her voice steady, yet Jacob detected a tremor beneath it. We're still gathering information. I will coordinate with the legal team and keep you informed. Mike sat back, the weight of uncertainty pressing on him. So, you're saying there's someone out there responsible? Someone we can hold accountable? Linda nodded slowly. Yes, but it may take time. The investigation involves many layers. It's crucial that you both take care of your health. My health? Jacob interrupted, feeling a surge of protectiveness over his father. How can we think about that when there's still so much unknown? As the words tumbled out, Mike turned to Jacob, concern etched in his features. Jacob, let her help us. We need know, Dad. We're in a race against time. I can't wait to unravel this mystery. We need answers now. Jacob's voice cracked, anger morphing into anguish. The shadows from earlier danced around them, darkening the fragile flame of hope. Linda stood still, the atmosphere thickening with tension. Jacob, finding the truth might provide closure, or it might open old wounds. You both deserve to heal. Jacob closed his eyes, frustrated, wanting to scream. But beneath that frustration, a flicker of sadness reminded him of the emotional toll they all bore. He turned to Mike. "I'll do whatever it takes, but I won't let uncertainty engulf us." "Not again." Mike offered a ghost of a smile, but it faltered. "We'll uncover what happened. I promise." With renewed determination, Jacob looked back at Linda. "When will we know more? How do we reach out to the authorities?" She inhaled deeply, the answer creeping into the air like a long-held secret. "I'll set up a meeting for tomorrow. I recommend being prepared. This case it may not be as simple as we wish." Jacob nodded, resolve igniting within him. Each piece felt like a thread, soon to be woven into the story they needed to confront. The shadows would not have the last word. As Linda stepped back, Jacob felt another shift within him. Secrets buried deep waited for the right moment to emerge. With his father's hand in his, he felt as if they could weather any storm together. But just as he gathered his thoughts, his phone buzzed in his pocket, the screen lighting up with a message that made his breath hitch. He glanced down, feeling the world tilt on its axis. It was from an unknown number. "You need to hear what I have to say. It's about your father's accident. Meet me, and I can explain." Jacob's heart raced. What was about to unfold? Would this stranger's truth lead to answers or only deeper questions? The message pulsed in Jacob's hand. The screen felt hot, the words blurring together as his mind raced. A knot of curiosity and dread tightened in his chest. Who was this? What could they possibly tell him that he didn't already dread imagining? "Jacob, what's wrong?" Mike's voice broke through the haze swirling in Jacob's thoughts. "What does it say?" He blinked, his father's worried gaze grounding him. It's from someone who knows about the accident. They want to meet. They say they can explain." Mike's expression shifted rapidly from confusion to concern. "Do you think it's safe?" "I don't know." Jacob rubbed his fingers along the rough surface of the phone case. "But we need to find out. If there's more to this, if my dad's accident meant something beyond just a careless driver, okay, then," Mike answered, his voice steady. "But we'll find a public place. No shady alleys." "Of course." Jacob nodded, already scrolling through his contacts for a nearby coffee shop. He needed half an hour to come up with a plan and gather his thoughts. He felt a burst of reassurance wash over him as he locked eyes with Mike. "We'll get through this, right? Together?" "Together," Mike echoed, squeezing Jacob's shoulder firmly. The meeting was set for later that afternoon. Jacob fought to distract himself, pacing the dull hospital floor. This wasn't just about getting answers. It was about facing a fear he hadn't fully acknowledged. He was terrified of the secrets that might surface, of the truth that could unravel everything. When the time drew near, he and Mike stepped into the coffee shop, which buzzed with everyday chatter. The aroma of brewing coffee and fresh pastries filled the air, a stark contrast to the solemn atmosphere of the hospital. Jacob smiled at the sight of people laughing, living. He wanted that life back for his dad. "Let's grab a table in the corner," Jacob suggested, his voice steadier than he felt. They settled, scanning the room for any sign of the stranger. Before long, a woman approached their table. Her hair was dark, pulled back into a messy bun, and her eyes were wide and alert as if she were constantly on guard. She looked at them both, her nerves palpable. "Jacob? Mike?" Jacob nodded, his throat dry. "You're the one who texted me?" "Yeah," she replied, glancing around. "I'm sorry to reach out like this, last minute, but I truly believe it's critical you hear what I have to say." "Then please, just tell us," Jacob blurted, anxiety spilling over. She took a deep breath. "It's about your dad's accident. I was there, I saw everything. And it's not what you think." The world around Jacob faded, the noise of the coffee shop dulling to a low hum. Only her words lingered, swirling with the weight of anticipation and fear. "Not what we think?" Jacob echoed, his heart racing. What do you mean? The woman leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I have information that will change everything for you. Just then, the door to the coffee shop swung open, and Jacob's attention snapped to it. For a split second, he felt the air shift, like something monumental was about to happen. The stranger's eyes darted towards the entrance, her expression shifted, a flicker of fear crossing her face. Wait here, she said urgently, rising from her seat before Jacob could respond. Is everything okay? Mike asked, concern spreading across his face. But she was already moving, slipping into the crowd. Jacob leaned forward, trying to catch a glimpse of her before she disappeared. What was about to happen? What truth was she fighting to deliver? As he glanced back at Mike, their eyes met, fear and determination intertwining in a shared understanding. They had come too far to back down now, yet the uncertainty hung thick. What was the truth she intended to share? The shadows loomed heavier than before. Jacob's heart thudded in his chest as he strained to see the woman slip through the crowd. Confusion and worry flooded his mind. Why did she suddenly look so terrified? He felt a sense of urgency gripping him, and without thinking, he stood up. Jacob, wait! Mike hissed, grabbing his arm. We don't know what is going on. I need to find her, Jacob replied, his voice frantic. What if she's in trouble? Mike hesitated but then nodded, clearly torn between caution and support. Okay, let us just stick together. We don't know who or what we're dealing with. They exited the coffee shop and stepped into the bustling street. People moved about, oblivious to the storm brewing in Jacob's heart. Jacob scanned the throngs, searching for any sign of the woman. She had mentioned she saw everything, but what truth could that hold? Would it bring him comfort or tear apart the fragile peace he was trying to maintain? Suddenly, he caught a glimpse of her dark hair on the corner just a block away. She was speaking to someone, a man in a dark jacket. The casual facade of the street melted away. Jacob felt the hairs on his arms stand on end. Over there, he whispered to Mike. They hurriedly approached, ducking into the shadows of a nearby storefront. With each step, anxiety coiled tighter within Jacob. The scene before them felt suspicious. What was this man saying to her? I told you to leave them alone. Jacob heard her voice, tense and shaky. You have no idea what you're putting at risk. The man's response was too quiet to hear, but Jacob could see her shaking head, a flash of fear spread across her features. Let us get closer, Jacob urged softly, wanting to hear more. Mike hesitated, obviously uncertain. This seems dangerous. What if no? We have to know. I can't turn back now. Jacob edged forward, pressing himself against the wall, the cold bricks biting into his skin as he strained to listen. The woman took a cautious step back, her eyes darting around as if seeking an escape. Your father's accident, it wasn't an accident, the man said suddenly, his voice low but forceful. You need to be careful who you trust. There are people who don't want the truth to come out. Jacob's heart raced. She was right. There's something we don't know, he whispered to Mike. The pieces of a larger puzzle were lurking just out of reach. The woman's face tightened. What do you know about my father? Enough to know he has trouble, the man replied, stepping closer. But you don't have to get involved. Just walk away. Jacob barely caught his breath. What did this mean for him? Was this a threat against his father he had yet to uncover? In that moment, they lost sight of the woman and the man. The fear sank deeper into Jacob's gut. What if she's in danger? He turned to Mike, eyes pleading for action. Let us go, Mike urged, pulling him back toward the main street. We need a plan, we can't just barge in without knowing what is going on. As they moved further away, Jacob felt a wave of helplessness wash over him. The woman had been their only chance at answers, and now she was gone, swallowed by the city. Where do we even start? Jacob asked breathlessly, frustration gnawing at him. I don't know, but I think we need to find someone who can help us, Mike replied, his brow furrowing with concern. Like who? Jacob pressed, the walls of uncertainty closing in. Maybe your dad's friends? Someone who knew him well. Jacob's heart raced again. It felt like a thread of hope in a dark abyss. But as he turned back to scan the street one last time, an unsettling weight pulled at his thoughts. What were they really pulling on? A loose thread that could unravel the very fabric of their lives? As uncertainty loomed, a new determination sparked within Jacob. He would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. With every step forward, he felt a rush of purpose, knowing the real battle was only just beginning. Would the truth bring them together, or would it tear them apart? Jacob and Mike made their way through the busy streets, their earlier confidence fading with each passing moment. The fear that something had gone terribly wrong consumed Jacob. The chaotic sounds of the city faded into the background, replaced by the urgency that pushed him forward. He couldn't shake off the woman's panicked expression. What did she know about his father's accident? Was it possible that everything he believed had been built on lies? Let us start at the diner, Mike suggested, breaking the silence that deepened around them. Your dad used to go there all the time. Maybe someone there knows something. Jacob nodded, his mind racing. They had to move fast. Time felt like sand slipping through their fingers. He could already sense that the closer they got to the truth, the more dangerous it would become. As they reached the diner, the familiar smell of frying bacon and fresh coffee wrapped around them, momentarily grounding Jacob. It felt like a lifetime since he had last sat at one of these booths, laughing with his dad over pancakes. But today, that laughter felt like a distant memory, replaced by dread. The place was half full. Brightly colored tables and chairs dotted the room, and the sound of clinking silverware added an oddly comforting rhythm to the atmosphere. Jacob's gaze landed on an old waiter behind the counter, someone who had served his father many times. Let us talk to Roy, Mike urged, gesturing toward the counter. With a deep breath, Jacob approached. Excuse me, Roy. Do you have a moment? Roy looked up, his eyes narrowing slightly before softening. Jacob. Sure, son. What's up? Do you remember my dad? Frank? Jacob asked, nerves bubbling up inside him. I need to know if you've heard anything unusual lately. Anything about his accident or... Roy's expression shifted, an uncomfortable silence stretching between them. Yeah, I remember Frank. Great guy. But, Jacob, the accident, it was a tough blow for us all. Jacob swallowed hard, trying to keep his composure. I heard something that made me wonder if it was really an accident. Is there anything you can tell me? Roy glanced around, sensing the weight of the conversation. Let us talk in the back where it's quieter. As they moved, Jacob's heart raced. What if this was the crucial piece of information he needed? They reached a small back room filled with boxes of supplies. The dim light cast shadows across Roy's face. Listen, Jacob, Roy began, rubbing the back of his neck. There were whispers after the accident. Some people thought it was odd how it happened, the timing, you know. Frank had a few enemies. What do you mean? Enemies? Jacob pressed, his heart pounding. Business acquaintances, people in his line of work. You know how it goes. Roy hesitated, glancing at the door, as if afraid someone might overhear. But I can't say much more. Just be careful. Jacob could feel the weight of Roy's words settling over him like a storm cloud. I need more than that. There has to be something concrete. Roy shook his head slowly. I wish I could help more. It's just there are things that can get people hurt, Jacob. Frustration overwhelmed him. How could he uncover the truth if everyone was so afraid to speak? His father's life was hanging in the balance, and every moment wasted felt like an eternity. I have to find out who those enemies are, he said, his voice steadier now. I can't let this go. As they stepped back to the main area of the diner, Jacob noticed a woman sitting alone at the counter, her fingers nervously tapping against her phone. Something about her seemed familiar, the way she leaned in close to her screen, the dark hair brushing against her jaw. Jacob, Mike nudged him, bringing him back. Wait, Jacob whispered, his heart racing again. I think I know her. Who? Mike asked, peering around. The woman looked up, and their eyes met. The world around them blurred. It was her. The terrified woman from the street. What is she doing here? Jacob's voice dropped to a whisper, a jolt of adrenaline shooting through his veins. There was more to her story, and this time, he would find out what she knew. But before he could step forward, she turned and darted toward the exit, her expression filled with fear. Stop! Jacob shouted, but the diner door swung shut behind her. Jacob, wait! Mike called. We have to follow her. There was no time to think. Jacob surged forward, determined to uncover the truth, desperate to piece together the fragments of his shattered reality. What secrets lay just beyond that door? He had to know. Jacob burst through the diner doors, the late afternoon sun flooding his vision. The street was bustling with people, but his focus narrowed, seeking the familiar outline of the woman who had just fled. He spotted her a few yards ahead, weaving through the crowd, her dark hair swaying with every hurried step. Come on! Mike shouted as he caught up with Jacob. They dashed after her, the street bustling with life, but it felt like time stood still. Each beat of Jacob's heart echoed in his ears. Why is she running? He gasped, glancing over at Mike. Maybe she knows something about your dad, Mike replied, determination in his voice. Just a few strides behind the woman, Jacob called out her name, but it sounded lost against the cacophony of the city. She glanced over her shoulder, fear etched on her face. For a moment, their eyes locked. The world melted away, and it was just the two of them. She looked like someone who was trapped. Then, the connection broke as she turned sharply down an alleyway, disappearing from view. Jacob and Mike skidded to a halt, the sudden silence of the alley stark against the noise of the street. Should we go in? Mike panted. Jacob nodded, adrenaline sharpening his focus. We have to. They ventured into the alley, the walls narrowing around them as shadows grew longer. The air was thick, the tension palpable. It felt as if they were stepping into a trap, a web of secrets waiting to ensnare them. Where did she go? Mike whispered, scanning the area. Jacob spotted a door at the far end of the alley, ajar. Heart racing, he moved toward it. This way. They approached the door cautiously. Pushing it open, Jacob peered inside. It was dimly lit, cluttered with crates and old furniture. But no sign of her. Maybe she went out the back, Mike suggested, pointing to a flickering exit sign. Or maybe she's hiding, Jacob thought aloud, feeling a chill. Why would she run from me? Suddenly, a soft sound broke the silence like a whimper. Jacob turned, and his eyes widened when he noticed a figure crouching in the corner. It was her, the mystery woman, her back to them, trembling. Wait, he said softly, stepping closer, hands raised. We're not here to hurt you. I just want to talk. She spun around, her eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. They were filled with tears, and Jacob felt his heart twist at the sight. Please. You have to listen to me. She pleaded, voice shaking. You don't know what you're getting into. Jacob glanced at Mike, who gave a slight nod, encouraging him to approach. We know about the accident, about my dad. We're trying to find the truth. The woman's breath hitched, and she looked down, as if the weight of the world rested on her shoulders. You have to understand. It's not safe for you to dig deeper. There are people who don't want that truth to come out. What do you mean? Jacob pressed, urgency spilling from his every word. What truth? She hesitated, her lips trembling. I can't tell you here. They have eyes everywhere. But if you promise to help me, I'll explain everything. You need to know what really happened that day. Jacob felt a rush of hope and fear colliding within him. Was this the break he'd been waiting for? The key to understanding his father's fate? Okay, he said, swallowing hard. We just want the truth. But how do we get away from here before it's too late? Just then, a sound echoed through the alley, a low, menacing growl of an engine. The woman's eyes widened as she stepped closer to Jacob, panic rising. They're here. We need to move. Now. As they rushed toward the exit, Jacob felt a mix of determination and fear. Was he ready to uncover the truth, knowing it might lead him into danger? He had to push forward. Follow me. She shouted, leading them down a cramped, darkened passage. What awaited them on the other side? Would the answers he sought bring light or darkness? In the dim light of the alley, Jacob felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down. The woman scurried ahead, a flash of determination as they sprinted deeper into the murky uncertainty of her warning. It was a maze of shadows, and Jacob's heart raced, every heartbeat pushing him toward answers yet to be discovered. They burst into a small side street, bustling with people unaware of the tension gripping the air. The woman glanced back at Jacob and Mike, her expression a mixture of urgency and fear. We need to hide somewhere safe, she said, breathlessly scanning their surroundings. Over there. Mike pointed to a small cafe with outdoor seating tucked behind a wall of greenery. They darted inside, hearts pounding against their chests. The cafe smelled of baked goods and coffee, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Once seated at a corner table, their breathing began to slow, but the tension lingered. The woman leaned in, a tight ball of apprehension. I'm sorry for dragging you into this, she said, eyes darting about for anyone eavesdropping. But you need to understand what's at stake. What do you know about my father? Jacob pressed, leaning forward, desperate for clarity. She took a deep breath, tremors coursing through her. Your dad's accident was orchestrated. It wasn't just a drunk driver or a moment of carelessness. There are powerful people involved, and they don't want anyone poking their noses around. Powerful people? Mike repeated, disbelief mingling with concern. What do you mean? Why would they go after Frank? Because he knew too much. He was working on something that threatened their operations. I overheard them discussing his plans, business dealings that crossed dangerous lines. They couldn't let him expose them. The woman's eyes flickered, fear creeping back in. And now you both could be in danger too. A chill crept through Jacob. How do you know all this? I used to work for one of those men, she whispered. I left because I had to, they were getting dangerously aggressive. But then, when I saw the news about your dad, I realized I couldn't stay silent any longer. Too much was at stake. A heavy silence hung between them. Jacob's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of his father's life intertwined with this woman's dark admissions. Do you have proof? Jacob asked, urgency sharpening his voice. Something we can use to show everyone what really happened? Yes. She nodded, her expression firming up. But it's hidden in a storage locker downtown. I'll need you both to help me retrieve it. It's our only chance to put a spotlight on the truth. Let us do it then. Mike declared, resolve filling his voice. We need to get that evidence. Jacob felt a wave of determination washing over him. But we have to be careful. We don't know who's watching, he urged, casting glances at the barista pouring lattes, seemingly oblivious to their conversation. As the weight of their decision settled in, the sun cast warm rays across the street, illuminating the potential path forward. They couldn't let fear hold them back. For so long, they had been dancing around the truth. Now, it was time to face it head-on. I'll text you the address to the locker, the woman said, pulling out her phone. We can go there after dark. It'll be safer that way. With their plans set, tension morphed into purpose. Jacob exchanged glances with Mike, who nodded with unwavering support. They could do this together. They had to. As they left the cafe, the murmur of the world surrounded them, yet it felt distant. All that mattered was driving forward. With each step, Jacob felt a transformation blooming inside, his resolve to protect his father becoming a light pushing against the dark. They would extract the truth, confront the shadows, and reclaim their lives. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting elongated shadows as they made their way through the streets. The path ahead twisted and turned, but together, they would untangle the web that held their lives in suspense. When they arrived at the storage unit, the air felt heavy with anticipation. It was nearly evening, and the shadows stretched long across the pavement. "Here we are," the woman whispered, pulling out an old key. "This is it." Jacob's heart thundered as she unlocked the door, the noise echoing into the stillness. They all held their breath in unison. What lay inside could change everything, but once they opened that door, there would be no turning back. The hinges creaked as the door swung open, revealing darkness. Stepping into it was like crossing a threshold into the unknown. "Ready?" Jacob asked, anxiety flickering in his chest. "Ready as we'll ever be," Mike replied, fear and determination mingling in his tone. The woman reached for her phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam sliced through the darkness, illuminating boxes stacked haphazardly. "Help me find the right one." Panic simmered under Jacob's skin. Could the answers they sought hide among these boxes, full of secrets that pulsed with danger? He pushed the doubts aside, determined not to give up. "Here!" the woman exclaimed, spotting a box labeled with Mike's name. "This is it. Open it." Jacob urged, breathless. With shaking hands, the woman undid the flaps. They crowded around, light spilling over the box's contents, revealing files, photographs, and a USB drive. "This is what you need," she said, eyes shining with intensity. "With this, you can expose everything." Jacob's fingers reached for the drive, a sensation of the unknown flooding through him. A leap into the truth, a declaration against the shadows that threatened to consume them. Before they could celebrate, footsteps echoed outside, sharp and deliberate. Heart racing, Jacob turned to Mike and the woman. "Someone's coming." They quickly began to gather the evidence, adrenaline surging. "We can't let them get us now," Jacob whispered urgently. Just then, the door began to creak. His heart pounded louder. They shoved the box closed, adrenaline surging as they ducked behind a nearby stack of boxes. The door swung wide, footsteps echoing into the room. "Don't make a sound," Mike breathed, fears swirling in the air. Jacob held his breath, watching as a figure entered, shrouded in ominous darkness. He felt his pulse quicken, knowing all they had worked for could shatter in an instant if they didn't stay quiet. They needed to escape this. Holding on to the remnants of his father's spirit and the flicker of hope growing within him, Jacob steeled himself. Because once they unveiled this truth, everything would change forever. And they had come too far to back down now. Just as the figure turned to leave, Jacob caught a glimpse of a familiar face. A friend of his dad's, someone he'd seen in the neighborhood, drawn into this fray of danger. He recognized an unexpected ally, but would this person realize it? "Dad's friends," Jacob whispered, his heart swirling with new urgency. How could he convince him? With everything on the line, now was the time to act. "We need to move," he whispered sharply to Mike and the woman, their path ahead unclear but pulsing with determination. They dove deeper into the shadows, seeking a way out, confident they would expose the truth and ignite a fierce flames of justice. Nothing could hold them back anymore. They were forged in the fire of love, determination, and truth. The bonds of family wouldn't be easily severed. They would bring light into this dark world and reclaim their story. With hope fueling their steps, Jacob and Mike pushed forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever came next together. Now was the moment to rise, to stand against the storm and fight. The truth was waiting, just within reach, and together they would uncover it all. With sheer will and trust in one another, they stepped forward into the darkness, knowing they would emerge victorious. And that spark of hope, of family and unity, would turn into an unstoppable flame. This was just the beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.